Good afternoon and welcome to another vlog, another video for Building Legacy, the podcast or the vlog for Legacy 71, the startup ecosystem for Black tech founders. So where are we at? I want to take this opportunity to be as frank as I can be around the progress that we've had. I've been documenting the stuff that we really aspire to over the amount of episodes that we've done so far. And I want to take this episode to kind of really be as open and honest as possible, because this is what it's about. It's about vulnerability. It's about stating the actual journey we're making to be here. Let's have a little bit of water. So basically, the premise is that last year I came up with the idea that I wanted to either have an incubator or accelerator for Black tech companies. Originally, it was an accelerator. And then I thought, an incubator might even be nicer. And then how do we do a hybrid form of the two? And I got really excited about it last November, so almost 12 months ago now. I decided I'm going to have a launch party, launched it in the Africa Centre in London. Really excited, brought a number of friends around, told us about the vision, where we want to go, etc. And then I spoke to a couple of friends and said, I want to start my £1 million fund in March. Around January or February, I had a bit of a wobble. And I went back and I looked at the actual business model that we had, or the models that are specifically shaped around incubators or accelerators for a lot of tech startups. And for me, whenever I started a business, I always want to make profit straight away. I know there are these large organizations who love to have loads of losses going in, but there are so many other good examples of organizations who've done and started companies and been profitable from day one. And I wanted to be able to do that because I really want to be able to model to the companies I'm supporting what it looks like to run a healthy business where we're making profit and we're not just depending on finance, or we're not just depending on this long tail of trying to get customers. And then March came and I hadn't raised anything. I had some really great conversations with a couple of providers like Crowdcube and the other online providers for equity crowdfunding. Ironically, quite a few of them, I'm not necessarily saying any specific name, but the popular ones out there, they were looking at things like your social media clout to see whether or not it was going to be applicable for you to be able to raise this money. And they also had a 90-day window within which to raise money. Now, again, one of the things I've been trying to do with Legacy is saying, look, I don't want people to rush, to burn, to crash, and try to force or place too much emphasis on raising money while you are building a business. Yes, fundraising is important, and it obviously helps, but it's not going to be the be-all and end-all. And for me, I felt that so much emphasis was being placed on raising this money that I hadn't placed enough money on what was that model looking like for the actual business. So as I've been saying over the last couple of episodes, we've really gone back and actually had a look at that. But in many ways, it was a bit disappointing for me because I would like to have been at this stage of the year where we would have been at least a few months in trading, doing some stuff already, supporting some businesses. And we've been working in the background, developing the courses and the content and thinking about the events we want to run, etc., etc. And of course, I brought on board a new team and making sure that they were aligned with it as well. But here's where I raise my hand up and say, look, you know what? The model that I had was broken. And what I wanted to do was make sure that we were able to have something that was income generating. And not only was it income generating, but to base it on, or to make sure that the assumptions we were basing the revenue around would be quite strong. So how do we do that? So part and parcel of it is we've been doing research, having conversations with individuals who we want to be part of the community, whether they are founders themselves or whether they are funders who want to put money in, or friends who want to support the actual founders. And having to really go away and really tackle the business model and do the search and surveys and research around that has been a real eye-opener. And in many ways, it has made me realize that even though I wanted things to go earlier and I kind of put it out in the atmosphere that things will go quicker than they were supposed to, it didn't happen. I'm not beating myself up about it. I'm just being really honest that it just took longer than planned. And as a result, obviously, I've had conversations with people who've said, look, Dave, we've had this conversation. What's happening? What's going on? And what I realized is that I looked around and I've seen in the tech space, there are a number of organizations who have rushed who have gone out to get things done pretty quickly and then have had to patch and make stuff happen in order to be able to satisfy their investors and do this massive pivots and all this stuff. And I've thought, no, you know what, I want to kind of like get this as near to good or right as we can first time round. And so what it's meant is that, yes, we still have the fundraising campaign that we're going to take on, because what we want to do is be able to create a war chest for some working capital that can help us to both market the courses, the events, and the community and build the community that we have, as well as being able to take some of that working capital and provide funding alongside others to a lot of founders who will need it and who usually don't get the kind of access to funding and finance in the community that we are supposed to get. And I think it's something like about 1% of Black tech founders get access to venture or angel funding. And we want to kind of change, we're going to change that narrative, whether we do it wholly within the community or whether we extend it out and build some really good relationships externally as well. And so what it's meant is that here we are now in October, Black History Month, ironically, where a lot has been done and a lot is being done behind the scenes to make sure that it works quite well. I've also really been challenged around my vision, and I think that the vision that I had at the beginning was quite small. And in many ways, revisiting that vision, I have an absolute one, and that is to create wealth generation for tech founders of Black origin. I think it's all well and good people saying, oh, we're all human and we shouldn't have labels and, all these things, we can become a better world and kumbaya. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. And I do agree with those sentiments. But right about now, when I think of a lot of my peers who don't have the advantages that I have had or many others have had about creating wealth within the community, a lot of those things have skipped us by. And I think of my children to come and being able to create wealth. And one of the greatest ways and greatest tools we can do that through is through technology. And so my focus here, specifically for Legacy 71, is that when I work with those Black founders, that we are going to create solutions, but it is about wealth generation, and not just in terms of the material, but in terms of knowledge as well. There are lots of individuals within our community who have an amazing knowledge around technology, but we have very little ways of making sure that that's collated and passed on. So sometimes there are people who are going to have a bit of a pushback who, I'll get the usual response like, what if it was a white group or an Asian group that did this? And I'm like, do you know what? If you want to do that, go and knock yourself out. The truth is to a lesser profile, a lot of people do that anyway. But I'm not necessarily going to get into any arguments to justify why I'm doing it. I'm just saying that vision is big, that we really want to be able to harness some coders, some entrepreneurs, some marketers and individuals in the startup ecosystem for technology that can create wealth. That's the bigger vision, and to be able to do it and be that number one resource that individuals can go to. The truth is, in the space of time that we've done this, we've seen some other organizations raise up who have wanted to tap into the Bain community. 6-9 months later down the line, they've disappeared. And that's basically because they just don't know our narrative. They don't know our story. They're not as invested. Yes, they may have access to some levels of finance and some levels of PR, but that's not what we're about. And I know for myself that my work takes me far. It allows me to work with people of all different backgrounds and all different shades, and entrepreneurs from very, very different backgrounds across all races and ethnicities. And I absolutely love doing this. But this is my passion project, and I'm doing it specifically for the technological and financial wealth and well-being of Black people who suffer so many times in many different ways here in the UK, where it's supposed to be meritocratic, and we know that it isn't. We know that we get access to less than 1% of funding. We know that there are lots of times around education and criminal justice and policing, and even the guys and girls who graduate and get out of college. We know of professors who don't have access to this stuff. And I mention this because in Black History Month, the one thing that we are really proud of for those of us who celebrate is about the contribution that we make to UK society as a whole. And so for me, where we are at now is that, it's still going to take a little bit of time. There's still some I's to dot and T's to cross. And I want to know that when we do launch the fund, that people do put their money where their mouth is. And I'm quite certain that those who said that they will support and in funding that they will come through. I've got no problem with that at all. And my ambition is that we will take this to a huge place. I'm not going to say too much now because I've learnt my lesson from opening my mouth too much last year when I had the launch in November where I spoke too much. I'm going to keep it quite basic. Look, I know that for somebody who has coached founders and startups, I've always said to individuals, don't rush it. Make sure it's the right time. Make sure you're doing it for the right reason. Understand your vision. Think about the impact you want to have as a leader. Have a look at your business model. What are your routes to market? Is it a really good product market fit? How are you going to develop leads and business development and sales and all those things I've been teaching people? I'm just making sure that I'm drinking my own medicine, because I want to make sure that there is no room for failure with this product. And if it means that we start a year, 18 months later than planned, then so be it, as long as we get it right. I'm not going anywhere in a hurry. And even if I am going anywhere, there are people around me and the vision is in place that people will be able to pick it up and run with it themselves. So that was it, really. Just to say that I am now a bit more focused, because I've had some people working with me on making sure I can get my newsletters out as well, so people can see these videos and get an understanding and get an insight into what it is that we're doing. Again, as I said at the bottom of this video, you can subscribe to these, and there's an email link at the bottom to join the actual mailing list. But I'm really happy about where I am right now. I'm quite balanced and quite settled. And to be honest with you, I'm not going to lie, over the summer slightly earlier, I was quite scared, having a look at the vision and what we can do and what has to be done. I was a bit scared. I was a bit scared about how it may be perceived. Would people think that it is an issue because it's aiming towards just black tech founders? Were things in place that could throw us out? What happens after Brexit? And then I just thought, at the end of the day, my ancestors and a lot of people who came before me, who sacrificed for me to be here, to live this life, this middle class privileged life of being able to walk in certain corridors and go to space. Last week I was at Downing Street. A couple of weeks before that I was at the House of Lords, and being able to work with amazing blue chip companies. There are people who sacrificed in order for me to be here, and my give back is being able to do the same thing for my community again. And I love this, an amazing statement where it was talking about equality and equity. There are some times that there are certain elements or part of the community that we're going to focus our energy on, be it around gender, race, orientation, ability, what have you. And people will get upset about that when you start to shine the light on those specific areas. And you know what? If you're upset with that, that's your issue. I honestly don't care. I honestly don't care if you're going to get upset about it. You just have to just deal with it. Because on the one hand, you can really complain about inequality and things not being done, or you can get up and do something about it yourself. So that's where we're at. I'm really excited about the next stage. Again, as I said, we're still doing a lot of research around making sure we get that really good product fit. Excited about the smaller events that we start. So we've started to run a couple of dinners and smaller events, and we're looking to run some masterclasses and then expand it out and roll these things out gradually over the next few months, and then going into 2020. But that's where we're at with Legacy. I'm incredibly grateful for amazing people around me, primarily my team, Emma Wilson and Gary McPherson, who have been incredible pillars of support and have kept me accountable. I also want to thank my wife, Madeline, who is always, even though she's not on the board and gives me grief, she's going to get the money anyway, so whatever comes out of there, but she gives me grief about that. I want to thank her. I'm part of a WhatsApp group called The Vanguard, and every single one of you, if you're listening to this now, I appreciate all 50 odd of you who are keeping me on my toes and keeping me fully supported. I think if I can single out specifically both of the Andys, Andy I.M. and Andy Davis, thank you so much for the constant holding up and making sure that you make sure I do what I say I'm going to do. I think of Alberto, my good old friend, who will constantly check in on me to make sure that I'm doing these things correctly as well, and telling me to dream bigger and telling me to make sure that my vision is bigger than it is. I think of Dean Forbes and Dan Maguire, two very successful entrepreneur friends of mine who have basically created and sold out and been really successful around their business. But whenever I am willing to ask them for insight as to how I can build a company, they have been absolutely amazing, and I appreciate them. I think of one of my heroes, Jerry Colonna, who has he runs Reboot, a leadership coaching organization in America, who has constantly been a source of support and encouragement and reminded me of what this big legacy is and how big it is beyond me. And for anybody else who I haven't mentioned, please forgive me, but know that you are in my heart and that the support has been amazing. And I promise you this, that when we do finally touch down and hit, and the website is up and the fund is running and the programs are going through and we've got the personal going through and people are starting to make wealth, you'll look back on this video and recognize, you know what? It came at the right time. So I appreciate, this is a longer than normal video. I appreciate you being able to listen and hear out where we are at. And I know there are going to be questions around this still going forward, and I'm more than willing to answer them. But trust me that we are in good hands, and we will launch, but at the right time. And in the meantime, I just want you to keep subscribing to these videos, and to our newsletter. We'll keep you updated, and appreciate all the support and the warm regards and gratitude that we have around building this community. Bless you, and thank you very much for listening, and tune into the next episode. Thank you very much. Peace.